Why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm going to talk for about 10 or 15 minutes, introduce Gary and Bruce. As I was sitting here at 6:45, I said, it would really be nice if the city council sort of knew sort of a framework for making a decision on the gateway and sort of how things flow and who's working on what and sort of how you get from all this information to all this decision at the end. So,
it's all on one page.
I got it all on one page. And I thought I'd kind of go like through those first four. I will tell you we're at 1 and 2, and we're working really hard to make 3 work. And part of doing 3 tonight is Bruce and Gary working on it and simplifying the information, as well as Laura Smith. And then we invite the police chief to kind of help us because he's new to the city, hasn't seen the project, and so he sees it differently than everybody else in the room. The first thing that I will tell you in terms of information, and I gave you this handout, we tend to get too much, it's too absolute, and it comes too fast, and there's lots of it. And with the Gateway project, we're going to have RERC that's going to be reviewing assessed values and sales tax numbers. Bruce has already been looking at leases. Laura Smith's working with the appraiser for appraised values. We had the Conrath group validate the preliminary plan in terms of construction cost estimates. We now know who the construction company is that he's contracting with or is working with, and we'll be asking for their numbers as well. So there's just all this information, and it just comes flooding at you. And the one thing that I will tell you is a lot of what we do is validate the information that we receive to make sure that it's true. And the other thing that I will tell you is that there are a lot of facts that we will find out aren't facts. And I can give you 3 or 4 examples of things that we all thought were facts, only to find out that they weren't. The first is, once Pluto was a planet, and it no longer is.
But it is a planetoid.
We once thought smoking was good for you, would help you with asthma. And we learned that actually... We learned that it didn't help you with asthma. If you remember, doctors said babies should sleep on their stomach, and then on their side, and then on their back. And if they slept in the right position, they wouldn't suffer from sudden infant death syndrome. And yeah, SIDS. And we found out that that really doesn't play that large a role in it. So what you will find is that there's a lot of things that are presented as facts that over time are disproven. So a lot of what we do is we take that information and we validate it to make sure that it's factual and that we can use it so that when you get to number 4, you have a basis for the decision that you're making. As we're doing 1, we're also doing 2, which is we're negotiating with the developer as relates to what he believes the incentive should be in order for him to build a project. And that's a function of, is this an appropriate use of public money to help a private developer to build something in your community? And if you remember, we talked about internal rate of return and what's an appropriate internal rate of return. So tonight, at the very beginning, I don't want you to think about calendars. I don't want you to think about special meetings, development agreements, bond covenants, offering statements or circulars, REITs, real estate investment trusts that might become a part of this project in terms of an equity financier that comes in and helps fund a part of it. That's just a whole lot of information. And I have to cull it down into things that are the most meaningful pieces so that when you get to that decision, I'm able to hand you something that's, here's our recommendation, and these are the pluses and minuses to the recommendation, and you need to weigh that. Not all the stuff that's out here, because there's a lot of it, as Amy and Dave can attest to, in terms of the amount of information that you get and you're trying to decipher. So this is the framework we're using. That's how we're going to get to the decision.
And this is for the financial decision, right? Not the planning. Or is it both?
It's
the planning
both.
Commission isn't in here.
Yeah, it's both. You could put staff in terms of we get preliminary plans in, you negotiate what needs to be included or excluded, and then it comes down. So that can be the planning commission or the council.
I think you accidentally gave me your personal notes here, because down there on decisions that you got written in your handwriting, claim the good decisions, blame the rest on Will.
Oh, well, that can't possibly be mine.
Sorry.
But that's what Gary and Bruce and Pete work on, and Laura Smith and I, is that simplification so that you get to the meaningful pieces. And what I wanted to do is give you a sense for sort of the negotiations and things that happen in negotiation and how it's presented. And Pat, you're gonna hold it, you're gonna open it, you can't tell anybody what's in it. Okay, do you see it? Okay, I will tell you that Jennifer picked it. And this is typically how a negotiation works in terms of us and then the developer on the other side. So I'll use Will. Will, in a deck of cards, there's two colors. There's black ones and there's red ones. If you could only choose one color, what would you choose?
Black.
Will, if I could ask you to give up black so that the city can consider red, would you be willing to do it?
I might.
You have to give me a yes or a no.
Would I be willing to consider changing?
To red.
No.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to have to go to your partner and ask Debbie. Would you consider red?
What are you offering?
I'm just offering you a color. That's it.
No.
Okay. So what happens right here?
Stalemate.
It's stalemates. Okay. If my council has told me red, guess what a developer eventually goes to?
Black.
No.
Red.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, they eventually go to red. Okay. If in a set of red cards, there's diamonds and hearts, which would you choose?
Diamonds.
Okay. If I ask you to give up the diamonds, because remember this is a negotiation, would you be willing to give up the diamonds?
I try. Yeah,
And you would accept hearts.
I would.
Okay, if in the hearts, there's all the choices. You have face cards, you have numbered cards, and you have an ace. If you could only pick one of those, which would you pick?
The ace.
Okay, so you would pick the ace of hearts. If we're successful in our negotiations, Pat opens up that folder.
4 clubs. Oh, no, it's the ace of hearts. So.
All right. You good memory.
And that's what you're constantly doing. You're constantly taking choices that the developer says he cannot accept, and you're trying to get them to take choices that are beneficial to the city. So that's the constant tug back and forth. I will also tell you there will be a point in the negotiation in which they will throw out something that's totally arbitrary and outlandish, and we'll say no. And they'll convince us that by saying no, they can't do the project. So you have to understand that those points come in any negotiation at the end. So as you think about what Bruce, Pete, and I are doing, it looks a lot like that. It looks a lot like, we can only do this. This is the path that we have to get down. And so what we do is we try to structure a way in which the developer gets to make some choices. You got to pick the A's, but at the same time, we have to pick some of the fundamental choices that we feel are in the best interest of the city. The other thing that concerns me, and I passed this out, is, and I saw it last Wednesday, I've seen it here 2 or 3 times before, and it's, as you go through your day, you're making decisions all the time. And there's a lot of science that's come out in the last 3 or 4 years that says, as you go through the day, you get decision fatigue, and kids really know this well. So, the best time to ask mom and dad something is like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night when they just got home from work, and your answer is go ask your mom or your dad, or fine, I don't care, or go watch TV, just don't bug me anymore. That same thing happens on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. You've all worked all day. You're now coming to a meeting, and now we're asking you to make decisions when you've been working all day. To compound it, guess what one of the worst days of the week is to make decisions?
Wednesday.
So take the worst day of the week and stick your meeting at the end of the day, and you already are entering, you're already fatigued in terms of the decision that you've made during the course of the day. So all I want to do is sort of make you aware that that happens, and it happens to all of us. It happens to me. I try to avoid decisions after 3 or 4 simply because you've been making so many. You're not probably listening to all the information that you need, and you're just trying to get to the end of the day. And I think, as I saw last week's meeting unfold, I could see decision fatigue. My guess is you all felt it in terms of as you were voting, like, what am I voting on now? And then what motion? Are we on the amendment? And I think you have to be careful and you have to sort of recognize that that's happening. And the unfortunate part is we have the worst day, our meeting's on the worst day of the week, and it's really at the worst time of the day. So what I want to try to avoid, and what I want you to be aware of, is that you already have constraints being placed on you in terms of when we're meeting and the day of the week. And to recognize that, because what it forces you to do is go, okay, I really need to pay attention now, because I have all these things working against me. And if I can just get through the next hour and a half, 2 hours, I know that we'll be to the end of this set of making decisions. So we're trying to simplify this down, because one of the components in the public financing piece is debt capacity. A developer could very well want to use up as much of it as he could, and we would want to preserve as much as we could. So you have to know what that debt capacity is and what counts and what doesn't count against it. And that's a really important component. And that's the only one I want you to try to learn from tonight. Because as I thought about decision fatigue, us throwing lots of information on Wednesday is unfair to you. You're at the end of the day. So we're going to try to simplify it down. And then we're going to put the same stuff that we talked to you about out on the website. So you'll see this framework. I'll put it up there tomorrow. And then I'll talk about the things that we talked about tonight in maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, both on our website and the Facebook page. And then people can kind of keep a chronology of the discussion if they don't happen to be at the meeting.
So
With
Mike,
that?
you said 3 things: project debt, debt capacity, and, or is it only 2 things?
No, that's 3 things. It was, what counts?
Okay,
It's sort of the city's overall debt, the 2 different pieces of blue paper.
okay, parts of debt, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep.